And I kind of have a competitive advantage. My cousins, they're into the show pigs. So if they're into Burks, and if the Burke doesn't look like it can win a county fair, they give it to me, and I'll throw them in the woods here. And they have quite a bit of muscle, so it's a pretty good product. Another comment I had about, how do you have a lot of different entities? And, something like Pigs in the Woods, it's good sometimes to not scale things. If you start looking at things at a 3 to 5 year process, year 1 and year 2, you're kind of learning. When you start getting a product, the key to marketing is to find a way to get a product in people's hands and let them see the difference, and then it's going to naturally, organically grow. 3 or 4 years later, now you get to where you're finishing 40 pigs. You got 50 people asking, when are you going to harvest those pigs? When are you going to have those available? And it's because of the previous years, getting that product and allowing people to try it out. But in Indiana, if there was a corner of any field that was wet, they probably left it. And about every field has a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 acre woods. And what we found is these small woods, we can coop up about between 30 and 50 pigs, so you give them about a third to a half acre. I've got a big stack of hog panel fence, and we'll just make a section for them. Depending on our density, where we're at, they're in there somewhere between 5 and 10 days. Once they trample down, we'll move them. But we've been doing this for 4 years now, and it's really interesting how we can change the landscape. We'll follow it up with a guy from town who'll come in and cut the dead trees down. He'll sell some of the firewood. I always have a huge stack going into the winter because I heat my home that way, so it helps me out there. And just, the pigs aren't going to gain as quick as being on ground, super low micron feed and paling or whatever they're running. They're going to take a little bit longer, but the meat difference that we see when we are bringing in this product versus the regular pork is just phenomenal on its tenderness, and it's pretty fun. But here's what's really cool about it is I can put the pigs on the landscape full of succotash, hedges. You see a lot of ivy there. They'll trample it down, and then we reset. So you get a lot of light infiltration on these small woods. So the outside 50 or 100 feet, you get plenty of light, and this is how we change it. It goes from that brush to grass. The nutrients help quite a bit. But I had the opportunity in 2020 to purchase a USDA meat company called Munsee Meats. It had been in business since 1957. And we've basically taken that infrastructure and that USDA grant certification. We've been working on creating a full vertically integration system where it started with collaborating with several local slaughterhouses. And no one could get their animals in to be slaughtered during COVID, but I kind of had a big advantage because I had cooling space, and all I wanted them to do is kill and chill. So we created a system with our old seed boxes where we have the pig split or the cow quartered into these boxes. We move them back to Munsee Meats. We've been using buying systems to value add the meat, tractor butchers, and all that stuff. It's also led to meeting a lot of interesting people and really having these aha moments. This is Monty Bottoms. And I was at his farm a couple years ago. This is just super interesting. We get feed for our livestock when you think we got to have all these nutrients. And what he did was, with grazing, is pulling the sled around and just allow the animal to choose which mineral they're deficient in. And his gains went up substantially. His feed costs went down substantially. Pretty interesting. Just meeting these people and learning new stuff. So we're doing the pigs in the woods. We've got a few sheep. We don't have any this year. We had some last year that we moved around with these poly wire fence. And unfortunately, we sold this golf course a month ago. This was my big project last year. was to create a golf course with the idea of putting regenerative agriculture in the rough. But what we did with this golf course, I really enjoyed in the year that we had it. We had a junior golf camp where we had all these K through 5-year-olds coming out and learning how to play golf. We had a cross-country invitational with 12 schools and ran on the property there. And the idea, we'll probably do this again here soon with the stock crop. I think it's true value proposition with intensive precision grazing is getting things started, meaning just imagine, I'll get back here, now that I'm in control, I'm even more than last time. With precision grazing, we can't start growing perennial crops like your fruit, your nut trees, raspberries, blueberries, and go back, get a root stock that costs maybe 50 cents and buy us time. So we started doing this at my house, planting rows of perennial crops, intergrazing them, and then getting to year 3, getting to year 4, where they're producing, they're epigenetically expressed, and really bridge that gap of value. There's the sleds. I get lost in my own slides. Imagine that. Okay. So, we needed a better way to connect with the consumer at Munsee Meats. And I wanted to be, my goal long term is to be a facilitator for other people's brands. If you have grass-fed cattle, grass-finished, vegetables, whatever. A lot of people have to put in the work at farmers market, but after that, those transactions become tough. And I got wind of this kiosk system from a friend, and we were one of the first ones to try it out. We coined this the automated farmers market. And what you're looking at is basically a giant refrigerator. So there's 20 lockers. These are modular in design. And we parked this at a Harley-Davidson dealership right in the parking lot of the big supermarket in town, Munsee, which is about 70,000 people. So 20 lockers. It can be from -10 up to 110 degrees. But people will go to our e-commerce site and order custom cut steaks. They can buy vegetables in the summer. We'll put it in these lockers. And the machine actually has Wi-Fi. It sends a text message and email message to the consumer that their product, their order is ready. They open up that text, it's got a QR code, and then their door opens up. The beautiful thing is I'm not paying a bunch of people to look at their phone and wait for a customer to walk in, pay for somebody to clean the crapper, put a new roof on, all this stuff. I've got about $1,500 a month in the lease and the interview in this, and we pay 2% of sales back to the venue. And to be honest, that Harley-Davidson dealership, if I would buy that piece of real estate, it would be multi-millions. You'll find that in marketing. If you want to be somewhere where there's traffic, it's really expensive. So I really think that this could be a good vehicle in the years to come with people trying to connect with consumers at a higher level or more volume level. I think I have a video on here, so play it here. So Sam, our meat cutter, I went on Amazon and bought him a loincloth. He didn't do a very good job covering up his underwear. But he's showing you that caveman could pull this off here. Caveman had the smartphone. So it's done really well. We've had it for 2.5 years. Sales continue to grow up. We're selling 10 to 15,000 a week or a month just out of this kiosk. And we're also doing fundraiser programs. Right. So on the back end, I'm not the most technologically savvy person, but I can imagine things, and I surround myself with teams that can kind of make things, kind of develop projects, and get them working, and then kind of pass them off. And being kind of my major is marketing, I loved this idea of Happy Gilmore checks and how we could integrate that in the community. So the problem with having a kiosk is your community has to be aware of what you're doing to be able to use it. So what we created 6 months after Munsee Meets was an automated fundraiser system. So it's not about Munsee Meets, it's not about Constant Canopy or any of that. It's about supporting the basketball team, the football team, the skill bowl team, the PTO, the church, the fire station. And we created a platform here where we can have, we can run 1 million of these at once, so eventually we saturate the market. And we see a lot of people just participating in fundraisers to get a box of meat anymore. But we're usually running between 5 and 12 fundraisers at once. And we've connected with every school, a lot of the churches, and we've, 2 or 3 days a week, we're showing up at their school and we're passing out these checks. And when you think about the power of exponential math, social media is kind of like a gun, bad analogy, but you can use it to kill animals or whatever. But if you can give people a want to support you and share things, the marketing kind of takes off on its own. And we found that when we can help raise money for a lot of organizations, they'll share these posts on Facebook, and those shares go to all their friends, and you start looking at the analytics behind, and Facebook will try to sell me a boost to a post, and they'll say, hey, give us $100 and you get impression of 1,000. Well, you'll get 100 times that by having people organically share something online. That's not the reason why we do it, but it does give people the awareness of our e-commerce platform. So we'll put these fundraisers up. They'll go to our e-commerce platform. They'll put in their address and their phone number and all that stuff. And then they become aware and they want to support us. And it's really been a good marketing for Munsee Meets. So here's our box system that we've used to collaborate with several slaughterhouses. We put it in the box, and then we'll take that back to Munsee Meets, cut steaks, get the grinds. And to tell you, the carcass model is tough, and I wasn't, seasoned veteran, so it's been a learning process. We have the labor to do it. It's just really tough to get out of, the subscription model or something where they're going to pay you extra. There's a lot of work that goes into harvesting the livestock. There's our truck, there's our team there at Munsee Meets, and we've done a lot to try to grow the retail. The other thing that I'm really passionate about, and I see it a lot when I travel, a lot of nights I'll be leaving on a long drive, and the only thing I could possibly eat at is Casey's. What's a Casey's? Pizza and donuts or whatever. And you find that a lot of these small towns, the Dairy Queen's left, they might just have a corporately owned gas station. And the unique thing about my area, there's a lot of men like Dick Johnson here on the left that fuel the farmers and own some locally owned gas stations. There's about 7 locally owned gas stations within 25 miles of Munsee Meets, and all of them now have a shelf with fresh cut meat that we service 2 or 3 times a week, and those sales have went up. But this is something that I'm passionate about is creating something that didn't exist. And I don't know how many buddies pat me on the back and say, thanks, man. I love being able to go down, get a 6-pack of beer and a steak, and they just didn't have that option before, or a hamburger or what have you. What is at the DG? I mean, if you're seriously wanting to feed healthy for your family, there are some options, but most likely you've got frozen food, cereals. This is what's really void in our communities. So here's our pumpkin fundraiser that we did several of, and we just give that all back. The other thing, when COVID happened, we had several trucks. We turned them into mobile meat selling trucks. And it just doesn't take much. You just need a square card or the reader. And we went to Rural King, spent a couple $100 on shelving, and we were kind of the meat wagon on wheels. And the first day I did this, I thought it would just be crickets, and I get there, and I didn't even know how to run the card reader thing. And it was a day like yesterday, it was like 100 feet index, and I had a line of 40 people wanting me, because it's like in the COVID hysteria. So I called everybody I knew, and eventually had a bunch of people an hour later, but that was pretty awkward. I was sweating pretty hard. But that works pretty well. And sometimes you got to go out and meet your customers. And you get to meet dudes like this that have the same band that they had in high school, that they have lava lamps and stuff like that. I really enjoy meeting these type of people. Here's a picture of our field day. So a lot of the projects that I talk about, we invite people to come out and look at it and kind of open their imagination. And we have this band usually out called the Flying Buffaloes that I met in Nashville. And you know what it boils down to is, you know, whether it's the Flying Buffaloes or you doing something on your farm. I think I have Courtney Mosier here. So I got to tell you about Courtney Mosier. She had an old barn. She's Miss Basketball just right down the road. Just took a couple $1,000s to put some basketball goals in this old barn, and my kids go there every summer. She has a handful of kids every hour, every day. She has the kids for 2 or 3 days based on the camp. And she does what she loves. She makes a good living doing it. And if you don't remember anything from my presentation, I think everything in nature has the capability of producing a lot more than we give it credit for. And I think we just kind of glaze over the amount of acres that we farm and don't really imagine the value of slowing down, really observing things and stacking those entities and how they can work together. You know, you can't give anything unless you have something. And you're not going to gain that knowledge or something unless you get started. So I can go off into more tangents, but I really want to have plenty of time to have a kind of an open discussion, open forum here on some ideas or concepts or any questions you have, and we can dive into any of these, things a little deeper if you'd like. Yes. Can you repeat the question? The pigs in the woods? Yes, we are giving them, my neighbor has non-GMO corn, and he has the bin screening, so just a lot of bees wings and stuff like that, and we get that. And then I store all our crack grain from our dryer setup, and that's the most amazing feed. It's just the heart of the corn, and we'll have a couple thousand bushels of that if I can keep it at home. Once we get into fall and it's fresh, it's really nice to keep the pigs later into the fall. That just must have fun. Yep. Yeah, so that is real, frost, and I was kind of cocky about it before. I was like, they will not die in this week, but 2020, it got down to 25 degrees, and we lost some in areas. Now, I will say that the closer you get to the wheat row, it's kind of like the hen's bud or the eagle's wing. It does protect it, and you get further away, and it's going to get zapped. And a lot of this stuff, like on that specifically, I learned from 2017. I planted beans May 16th, crossways, and the frost killed the center part of the rows, and it was alive everywhere else. So they can die, but there is kind of a spectrum of protection with that. Yes.
You mentioned the team that you have around you to help you do some of these things. What was one of the first maybe groups or teams that you brought in your circle when you started doing something really crucial?
Yeah, so, the team has grown exponentially. We were over 40 employees at a time last year. 2020 was the first year we had interns. And funny story, I got one intern specifically for TCOM. So I got him out of the TCOM building. He was kind of a slight-figured man. And then Sarah came, and she was natural resources. And the first day, I'm like, let's see how tough they are. We're going to build a hog fence. And the TCOM guy made it about 15 minutes. His entire hands were full of blisters and calluses. He wasn't going to make it. I'm like, well, he's going to be pretty much in charge of the camera. But Sarah stayed, and she's just been phenomenal. She's still with me today, developing new things. And she's been invaluable. And that's just the way it works. Like, you might have to attract 10 or 100 people to find that one or two, but that one or two is just exponentially valuable when they stick around. And they're thinking about things when they're not working. They're bringing their ideas and developing things. And it just takes, if you've got 20 employees, it just takes 3 or 4 to really kind of own their part to run a better organization. But she's the most memorable of. Anything else? Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so we had that conversation earlier about managing multiple entities. And a lot of this is timing, sequences. So I'm really particular when we try something of, finding these windows where I can kind of come into Munsee Meets on a rainy day or off season and really work on the back half, or the relay week. Like, we're not going to go on vacation this 2 weeks out of the year. And, so much of everything is a manifestation of what you learn and who you know. And, Stockcropper is mostly Zach Smith, but we've been talking for 7 years about these concepts. And it's so nice to drive up to Milwaukee to spend a weekend with Zach and Joe and design a new machine that we're going to produce. And you just are invited to be a part of a lot of cool things. So, just a thought here is we can accomplish so much when we don't care who gets the credit. We're all kind of working on this concept. I can't say how much the cancer aspect choked me up. That's why I'm here. I lost my father, I lost my uncle, bam, bam, and now I'm expected to continue the family farm in the direction that I think had a part of them not being here. And I think it's really important to have an open mindset in these deals. Sometimes it takes compromise to accomplish greater goals. With the meat thing, I didn't think that I had a viable business in Munsee Meats by doing the old one of just buying commodity box beef and sourcing to the restaurant. So it takes that exudation of passion, meeting people one by one to kind of create the constellations to create this end product of John Smith having cattle, John Smith having his steak at the local gas station where the neighbors can get to it. You can't just do it. You got to have a slaughterhouse. You know what I mean? So it just kind of happens. I don't know. Yes. what am I doing for myself too? Yes. 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 Alright. We're trying to, raise my Abraham Lincoln's quote, the easiest way to predict the future is to create it, so I think we're all working on that. And, it takes these little snippets. When you talk about, knowing how much nitrogen is in the soil so you don't have to apply it, or thinking ahead to plant a cover crop to, if we had